Hey guys, Danny Stone here for another Imperator Rome tutorial, this time on the art of money making. I have seen quite a few people post on Reddit that making money seems to be an issue for them, and hopefully this guide will help you out and let you reap the rewards in the form of shiny gold coins. Anyway, to understand how to make money, we first need to understand the economic mechanics of the game. First of all, your treasury is located in the top left hand corner of your screen up here, which details the amount of gold you have in your treasury. Here I have 9,345 gold in my treasury, which is quite a significant amount. If you hover your mouse cursor over it, it also shows you your previous monthly balance, which here in my case was 127.37 gold per month. Please bear in mind this is your previous balance, and to actually see the actual balance that you make for this month, we need to go into the economy tab. The economy tab is located under your resource bar precisely here. Click on it and it will open a new window. Here it details your monthly balance, which is up here. It determines that this month I will make 125.32 gold per month. This balance, which will either be positive or negative depending on if your revenue is higher than your expenditure and vice versa. You can also see a very detailed breakdown of your income. As you can see, in my income I make a certain amount from taxes, which is 173.98, and a certain amount from commerce, which is 79.25. From these two values, so from your tax income and commerce income, you subtract your expenditure. Your expenditure is basically your fort maintenance, your army maintenance, and your wages. You can see at the top that my total income from taxes and commerce is 253.23 gold per month, and my expenses are at 127.91. Subtract that 127.91 from my 253.23 and you get the monthly balance, which you can see at the top. Please bear in mind that the army maintenance will go up the more soldiers you have, and the same applies to the forts. The fort income maintenance will go up each fort you have. So each fort, I think from the top of my head, is 0.5 gold per month in fort maintenance. And your army goes up, or your army maintenance goes up the more soldiers you have. It's kind of logical. So with that balance number up there, the 125.32, each time a month goes by, then that sum will be added to my treasury at the top left hand of the resource bar. Anyway, now balance, income and expenditure are out of the way. Let's go into detail about your taxes and commerce income. What is this? Well, your tax income is the amount generated by the slaves in your provinces, and the commerce income is generated by the citizens and the trade routes of the provinces. To see this, all you need to do is click on any given territory in a province and it will open up the actual province interface. In the top right hand corner you will see a gold bag and a picture. The gold bag represents the province total tax income. So that means the total amount of gold made by all the slaves in the province that the territory has been selected. So in this case is the province of Galatia Septentrionalis. And likewise, the picture determines the commerce income generated by all the citizens and the trade routes of the same province. To see this in detail, all you need to do is move your mouse cursor over both icons here and you'll have a more detailed breakdown. If you want to see what tax and commerce you produce at a territory level, so that's at the singular administrative unit, all you need to do is check out the same icons which are below in the territory or city section of the actual interface. As you can see, the city of Caranicum produces 4.89 tax income and 3.03 commerce income. So what happens is that every territory in this province, if I click on the next door neighbour one, Brevis, also has this. So you can see Brevis makes 1.2 tax income and 0 commerce income. Every bit of tax income of each territory here is added together and then creates this sum at the top, which is the province tax income and the province commerce income. Now that you guys know where all this money comes from, the all-important million-dollar question is how to actually make a significant amount. Well, the first answer is quite simple. Just have more slaves. The more slaves you have, the more tax income that you generate. If I were to go onto my nation overview and show you the percentage of each of my pop types, as you can see that nearly 50% of my pops are actual slaves. So they're generating me that whopping 1.74.26 tax income per month. To get more slaves, make sure you go to war. Each time you capture an enemy territory, you have a certain amount of chance to capture pops, which these captured pops get then turned into slaves, which then get distributed throughout your empire. To increase the chance to enslave pops, you can do this depending on your culture group. You can have access to military traditions that can increase the enslavement efficiency. For example, if I was to go to my military tab and then scroll down for my barbarian traditions, which somewhere I'm pretty sure I have, here we go, the glory of the hunt, which gives me plus 20% enslavement efficiency, which increases the chance of actual capturing slaves from besieged territories. Also, keep an eye out for commander traits that actual increases the enslavement efficiency. To show you this, I will just find an army with a general I can change. Let's just find this out over here. Here we go. And just change a commander. And while you look for a commander, make sure you find some traits like corrupt, for example, which increases enslavement efficiency by 1%, increasing the chance of that army of actually capturing slaves. You can also increase your tax output with various inventions, further increasing the amount of money that they generate. For example, if I go to the economy tab here and hover my mouse cursor over this little chest with a plus 22.25% icon, you can see that underneath it that the property tax and ICE4 inventions, which are both at 5%, give me a total combined of plus 10% increase to the tax income. This 22.25% here is basically all the bonuses that I have, which increases the tax income up to this amount. So the modifiers have already been applied, and that is the final sum at the top, 173.98 of the tax income which I actually get per month from taxes. Also, make sure you have a good steward, because depending on the finesse stat of that steward, he will increase your national tax by a certain amount. For example, if I show you on my government tab into my officers here, you'll see my steward, who has 11 finesse, increases my national tax by 11%. This because this increase is down to 1% per finesse stat. So 11 finesse equals 11%. If it would be 8 finesse, it would have been 8%. Buildings in settlements can also increase the slave production output, which increases your tax. For example, if I were to click on any given territory or any given settlement here, and if I like for this one here in, what's it called? Marinia, sorry. And if I went to the build section here, and if I was to build, for example, a slave estate, then the local slave output would be plus 40%. These slave estates, you really want to build them in territories which have a lot of slaves that don't produce food. Here I have a farming settlement because it produces food, and I want to produce more food so I can actually feed the province. For example, if I went to the next one here of Lucas Augusti, this territory here, I have a slave estate, and since I have 15 slaves, which is quite a fair bit, it increases their local slave output by 40%, increasing the amount of tax that that settlement actually produces. To further increase your cash flow, make sure to get that commerce income up as well. In order to do that, you need more citizens and more trade. As we know, citizens produce research points, but that's not the only thing they produce. They also produce commerce value, which is your commerce income. The more citizens you have, the more commerce income that you will produce. For example, if I were to click on my capital city here and move my mouse cursor over the commerce income of the city of Caranicum, you will see that the citizens here produce 2.35 gold per month. That is just in commerce taxes. The more citizens you have in your empire, the more commerce income you will produce. Make sure you build nice big juicy cities filled with libraries and academies to increase the optimal ratio of citizens. That basically means the amount of citizens in a given city. If you want more detail on this, please go and check out my Cicero tutorial. I go through all that in detail. But the bread and butter of your commerce income is through your trade routes. The more trade routes you have, the more commercial revenue you will generate. Your trade routes are divided into two categories. You have your import routes, which allow you to import resources, which, as well as giving you bonus depending on a specific resource, also gives you a certain amount of gold per month. For example, in my capital province of Galatia Septentrionalis, I have 12 available import routes. Here, if I were to click on the import button here, it would open the trade goods. Let's say I wanted to import some vegetables maybe. And then you'll have here the list of available nations wishing to trade or let you import these vegetables. If I hover my mouse cursor over the trade route available, which is Baetica Cardubensis from Carthage, you will see, as well as giving me the local monthly food modifier at plus 10%, it also earns you 0.31 gold per month. But where you make your most trade money from is exporting, because there is potentially no limit to the amount of export routes you can do. As you can see, the import routes are limited to a certain amount of number, but the export routes aren't, because as soon as you have a surplus of any resource, you can export it. So, like import routes, exporting gives you bonuses and some gold per month. But, as stated before, to export you need a surplus of a certain resource. Each resource produces a specific type of good. Each time you click on a territory, you'll see here in the icon that they each produce something different. Here you can see the settlement of Villadonga produces horses, while the next door neighbour one of Sebacia produces base metals. To get a surplus of a certain resource, all you need to do is have a certain amount of slaves in that specific territory to produce the surplus. To find this out, all you need to do is move your mouse cursor over the resource icon and it will tell you how many slaves is needed to provide an additional type of resource. Here, in this settlement here, you can see that every 9 slave pops will provide an additional base 1 metals. So basically, with 9 slaves here, I produce an extra base metals, which I do. But in order to get an extra base metal after that, I would have to have 18 slaves. And then another 9 after the 18 to produce a third, and so forth. All you need to do to ensure that you make a surplus of a certain resource is just basically move your slaves around. All you need to do is go into the view pop section of the settlement or city or whatever it is, click it open and move your pops. Here I have 13 slaves in there. If I was to send in or move around enough slaves till I get 18, I would produce a surplus of the resource. So let's give this a go. So I have 13 in there, let's move 13, that's 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18. Now instead of making plus 2 base metals, I make 3 base metals. That's because I have 18 slaves, and as it says, every 9 pops it will provide us with an additional set of base metals. The amount of slaves needed to make a surplus of a certain resource can be reduced depending on some buildings. For example, I built a mine in this settlement which decreases the amount of slaves needed for surplus, which is why that the surplus needed, or the amount of slaves needed for surplus in this territory here is only 9. If I didn't have the mine, it would increase it by 5, meaning that I would need 14 slaves to make a surplus of that resource. When you produce a surplus, the AI will automatically send you a trade offer asking to import the resource. It is then up to you to accept or not, but consider in mind that when you do export, it does make you money. Finally, some people will say, well Dan, why not build marketplaces and tax offices in your city? Because if I go on a city, click on the build buildings here, you have a marketplace which increases commerce value and a tax office which increases your local tax. Well, why not build them? Well, the answer is quite simple actually. I actually find that the increase in tax income or commerce income based on the building of that specific building to be just too small, and it's not really worth it. For example here, if I were to build a marketplace in my capital, just hover your mouse over the plus cursor which lets you build it, and it will detail you how much money you will gain extra per month. Here you can see it would only increase my total income by 0.62. That is just not enough. I find it to be a waste of a building slot since the number of buildings is limited by the number of pops. And to make this marketplace worthwhile, or to make the effect of the marketplace worthwhile, I would have to build a ton of these. And since the number of building slots is limited, I just find it personally more viable making libraries and academies to ensure that my pops promote to citizens, and these citizens produce commerce income. So I just think it's just more efficient to do it that way. Anyway, that's it for another tutorial, guys. I hope it helped, and if it did, don't hesitate to like the video. I would really appreciate it. And for the next tutorial, I'll probably do one on the military, what army compositions to have, and so forth. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys later for another video. Bye, everyone.